Istanbul's waterfront metamorphosis. From Byzantine harbors to modern ports. Opening, where water meets time. Imagine standing at the edge of the water as the sun rises over Istanbul. The sea glows gold. Ferries glide past minarets. Cargo ships wait patiently on the horizon. At first glance, this is a modern global city, loud, busy, alive. But beneath the sound of engines and waves lies something deeper. A story written in stone, salt, and centuries of human ambition. Istanbul's waterfront is not just a coastline. It is a living timeline. For more than 2,000 years, empires have looked to these shores and seen power, opportunity, and destiny. From Byzantine emperors guarding their harbors, to Ottoman sultans commanding global trade routes, to today's container terminals feeding the world economy, this waterfront has constantly changed, adapted, and reinvented itself. This is the story of that transformation, a story of harbors that became ports, of docks that shaped empires, and of a city whose fate has always been tied to the water that surrounds it. One, gates to the Golden Horn, ancient roots. Long before Istanbul was Istanbul, this city was known as Byzantium and later Constantinople. Its greatest advantage was not its walls or palaces. It was geography. Here, the Bosporus meets the Golden Horn, a natural harbor so calm, so deep, and so defensible that ancient sailors believed it was a gift from the gods. The Golden Horn became the beating heart of the city's maritime life. Along its shores rose the first great Byzantine harbors, including Mandracium and Neorion, names now mostly forgotten, but once known across the Mediterranean. These were not simple docks. They were gateways to the world. Merchant ships arrived, carrying grain from Egypt, wine from the Aegean, silk from the east, and spices from distant lands. The harbors buzzed with sailors speaking dozens of languages, traders negotiating prices, and officials collecting taxes that filled imperial coffers. Nearby stood the great palace of Constantinople, carefully positioned to maintain direct access to the sea. From its waterfront terraces, emperors could observe arriving fleets, welcome foreign envoys, or prepare for war. The sea was both protector and provider. Massive sea walls guarded the coastline, forming one of the most advanced defensive systems of the ancient world. Enemy ships struggled to penetrate the Golden Horn, especially when the Byzantines stretched their famous iron chain across its mouth. These shores radiated power, economic power, political power, cultural power. Through the waterfront, Constantinople became the crossroads of Europe and Asia, a magnet for wealth, knowledge, and influence. For nearly 1,000 years, the city ruled from the water's edge. But history never stands still. 2. Ottoman embrace. Crossroads of continents. In 1453, the world changed forever. The Ottomans captured Constantinople, and with it, one of the most valuable waterfronts on earth. Rather than destroy it, they transformed it. Under Ottoman rule, the city became Istanbul, and the Golden Horn entered a new chapter of life. Across the water from the historic peninsula, Galata flourished as an international trade district. Merchants from Venice, Genoa, and beyond established warehouses, docks, and counting houses along the shoreline. On the opposite side, Eminonu emerged as the empire's commercial heart. Here, ships unloaded goods from 3 continents. The smell of spices, coffee, and salt fish filled the air. The Ottomans invested heavily in the waterfront. They built grand quays, organized customs houses, and expanded dockyards to support both trade and naval power. The Golden Horn became home to the imperial arsenal, one of the largest shipbuilding complexes in the world at the time. Nearby rose the Spice Bazaar, not merely a market, but a carefully planned economic engine designed to control and tax global trade. Ottoman sultans understood something crucial. To control the sea was to control the empire. Sultans like Mehmed the Conqueror and Suleiman the Magnificent poured resources into the waterfront. They saw harbors not just as economic tools, but as symbols of imperial strength. Ships sailing into Istanbul did not just see docks. They saw power made visible. The waterfront became a stage where empire announced itself to the world. But as centuries passed, new technologies began to reshape maritime life, and Istanbul's shores would once again be forced to adapt. 3. Industrial Revolution and beyond. Shifting tides. By the 19th century, the age of sail was fading. Steamships arrived. Larger, heavier, faster, and far more demanding than the wooden vessels of the past. Istanbul's historic harbors, once perfect for galleys and merchant ships, began to feel cramped. At the same time, railways reached the city, linking ports to inland markets. Trade volumes exploded. Time became money. The old waterfront could no longer keep up. New docks and port facilities were constructed beyond the traditional core, reshaping the city's relationship with the sea. Warehouses grew larger. Cranes replaced human labor. Schedules replaced seasons. Foreign companies and Ottoman reformers introduced modern port management systems, trying to keep Istanbul competitive in a rapidly industrializing world. Then came the 20th century. Empires collapsed. World wars redrew borders. And in 1923, the Turkish Republic was born. When it came a new vision for Istanbul's waterfront, national priorities shifted. The focus moved toward modernization, efficiency, and integration into global trade networks. Some historic docks lost their original purpose, while others were repurposed or abandoned altogether. The city was no longer the capital, but it remained Turkey's economic engine. And once again, the waterfront evolved to meet the demands of a changing world. For modern metropolis, global gateway. Today, Istanbul's maritime landscape looks very different from its Byzantine and Ottoman past, yet the same strategic logic remains. The city now hosts massive, specialized port complexes like Ambarli Marport and Cumport. These are not picturesque harbors lined with wooden boats. They are industrial giants. Towering container cranes operate day and night. Cargo ships the size of floating cities dock with mathematical precision. Millions of containers move through Istanbul each year, carrying everything from electronics to food, textiles to machinery. These ports are the backbone of modern Turkish trade. Istanbul sits at the center of global supply chains, linking Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and beyond. What once passed through the city on camel caravans now moves in steel boxes tracked by satellites. At the same time, ambitious infrastructure projects are reshaping the waterfront once again. The proposed Istanbul Canal promises to alter global shipping routes and ease congestion in the Bosporus, while also raising environmental and political questions. The water remains powerful and controversial. Despite all the technology, Istanbul's role is unchanged. It is still a gateway, still a bridge, still a point where worlds meet. But the story is not only about trade. It is also about people. 5. Future horizons, revitalization, and reimagination. In recent decades, Istanbul has turned its attention back to its historic waterfronts, not just as economic assets, but as cultural and social spaces. Old docks along the Golden Horn and Bosporus are being reimagined. Industrial zones are transforming into promenades, museums, parks, and mixed-use developments. Projects blend preservation with modern design, allowing centuries-old warehouses to coexist with contemporary architecture. Cruise tourism has introduced new dynamics. Luxury liners now dock where merchant ships once unloaded spices. Marinas serve yachts instead of galleys. Cafes replace customs offices. For residents, the waterfront is becoming accessible again, a place to walk, gather, and reconnect with the sea. Yet challenges remain. Rising sea levels, pollution, and overdevelopment threaten fragile ecosystems. The pressure to balance economic growth with sustainability has never been greater. The future of Istanbul's waterfront is still being written. Will it remain a space for global commerce? For leisure and culture? For environmental restoration? Most likely, it will be all of these, because Istanbul has never chosen just one identity. Closing, a city shaped by water. From ancient Byzantine harbors to Ottoman dockyards, from steamship piers to container terminals, Istanbul's waterfront has never stopped changing. Yet through every transformation, one truth remains. The city and the sea are inseparable. Water has fed Istanbul, defended it, enriched it, and forced it to evolve. Every wave that touches its shores carries echoes of emperors, merchants, sailors, and workers who shaped the city from the water's edge. To understand Istanbul, you must look to its waterfront, not as a backdrop, but as the main character in a story still unfolding. A story of movement, of power, of connection. And as ships continue to arrive from every corner of the globe, Istanbul stands as it always has, watching the horizon, ready for the next chapter.